All right, good morning, everybody. We have our musician slash producer with us. I'm going to go ahead and let him introduce himself, and then I will get to asking questions.
Good morning. Good morning. Um, I go by Duce. I'm a producer, artist, engineer, kind of a jack of all trades when it comes to creative process. Do video production and visual effects and basically everything I can do. So
That's
I've
awesome.
been doing it for about 22 years. Well, music production anyway, about 22 years, and started off as an artist and kind of forced myself to learn how to do all this stuff. So it's kind of who I am.
Awesome. Well, cool, cool, cool. So I'm going to ask artist questions first, and then I'll ask the producer questions because I got to grill you on both sides
Go
to
for it.
know and let people know who Duce Ire is. All right. So, who inspired you to do music?
Um, Probably my biggest influence early on was Tupac, actually. Um,
Awesome.
that's kind of who can. I mean, there was other influences earlier, but to actually do music, for whatever reason, in the '90s, I clicked with him, and it didn't quite start right away. It took a few more years after that, but that was a
Yeah.
big influence that kind of like got me into making music and started writing and everything from there. So,
Awesome. And then, how would you describe the style of music that you do since you do all kinds of
uh,
music?
I mean, not collect. Like, I don't really have one style. It's interesting. I've had a lot of people like every pretty much every time that somebody like listens to my music that I'm standing there, they compare me to different people, like all over the spectrum. So it just depends, I guess, what song they're listening to and what they're into.
Awesome.
Because I like to experiment with all kinds of stuff. I'll
Absolutely.
take influences literally from every genre. Like my favorite band is the Beatles, but like I mean, just I've worked on literally every genre imaginable over my career and then some. So
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, way to go for you. And then what makes you, because I can tell you have a studio right behind you, what makes you so passionate about the music entertainment?
uh I mean, like I guess it's a couple of things. I get to like express myself and tell stories and be creative. Like I start off basically my whole life. I've been creative. I started off drawing and painting, and then moved into music later, and did some acting and did a bunch of different things over my life. So, sorry, what was the question again? I lost
Oh,
train.
it's okay. Um, what makes you so passionate about the music
Oh,
entertainment?
so it's just telling the stories and
Yeah.
also the technical side of it fascinates me. That's why I have all this.
Yeah.
I get super technical about the music, which in some ways is like almost another instrument to me.
Yep.
Um, um, you could tell your story with your voice, but you could also tell it with a million other different means, whether it's an instrument, whether it's mixing choices you make, whether it's sound design. You know, they all play a role. So it's all like fascinating to me. And I think I get bored easy. So I need all these like extra challenges and like things to push me, to
Yep.
get better, no matter what it is. So
Yes.
I guess
And
that.
being a producer, that is a huge part of, you have to learn so many different things and criterias that it's too much for me. I'll tell you that.
What, what's interesting is when I started, I guess when I started writing music or started like writing lyrics, I started off as a rapper. And one thing about that is like I looked at videos online. This is back like in the late '90s, early 2000s when I started. And I looked at videos and looked at like these interviews, and I saw these artists in these studios, and for whatever reason, I just pictured them all knowing how to use everything in the studio. Like when they're in the studio, I'm like, oh, every artist knows how to use everything that's in there. That's the prerequisite to like make music. You need to know how to use all of this stuff. So with that thought, like for whatever reason, it forced me to teach myself how to do that because I just thought it was part of the deal, you know.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
a lot of,
totally.
and it's weird because I used to think the same way as you that, oh, all musicians know how to do all that. Wrong answer. I was like, oh my gosh, they definitely, a lot of them don't. A lot of them do not know how. And
most
then,
most, like yeah.
yeah,
That's why people
go.
come to me or other people to like to record, you know, like
Yep.
for me to push the buttons and turn the knobs and whatever, because they're like, I don't know what that stuff is. It looks too complicated.
Yes. And then if you could do a collaboration with anybody alive or past, who would you choose to do a collaboration with?
Oh, the pastor. Gosh, I mean that list is super long. To be honest, but uh, I, I get like in the hip hop world, it would be, I mean, some of the legends, obviously, like Tupac, Tech Nine, Eminem. I mean, you can just go down the list.
Yeah.
But then there's other genres that I would have loved to, you know, get in with some rock bands and metal
Yep.
and folk music and country and so on and so forth. Like, I mean,
Yes.
it just like I said before, like I I want to play with all kinds of sound and create different things, whatever like brings out emotion or tells a story or whatever. So
Yeah. Yep. That is, and I'm so glad that you talk about that, that you do all different kinds of music because my husband, Black Eyes, he's a musician also. And I told him, I said, babe, you gotta like do all different kinds of genres. And he's like, you know what, Liz, you're right. He is a rapper, but he also is starting to branch into singing and doing
yeah,
all different of genre. And I'm like, that's gonna benefit you a lot
and he
because,
doesn't necessarily have to do it with just his voice. Like he can incorporate the instrumentation, you know, like
yep.
other genres and blend those things in and still have his own style, but mix those things in a very creative way that'll, you know, not only separate him, but like be able to express himself in other ways he
Yep.
maybe didn't think of before. So
Yep. And I'm glad that there's people out there that are starting to realize like you don't just have to be just a rapper. Like you can be all different kinds of things. Just
you know, for sure.
open your horizon. Like
For
open it up. And
sure.
then what strengths do you believe you have that makes you a great artist?
uh, I guess diversity and experience. Um, and, and that plays into everything, but as for all the things that I do. Um, but I think it's like all the experiences I had, the time I spent touring in the mid 2000s, working with like I was partnered up with a live sound company that eventually sold off, but they were, you know, they had hundreds of millions of dollars in gear, and so I got exposed to a lot of different people, different sides of the industry, and basically like stepped into the entire back door of, you know, you go to a, like I go to a show, for example, and it doesn't excite me like the way an average listener or fan would. I look at everything, I'm like, oh, that compression's not right, or I start thinking about like how they set up like all the different technical stuff from hanging $1 million speakers, you know, in the rafters of a giant venue to, you know,
Mhm.
all the runners that are running around making that show happen. It's just, I think all those experiences in general, like being around other artists and people that are creative in the industry, whether they're like a front facing artist or somebody who's just a session player that comes in and collaborates with an artist. So I think it's just experience, honestly.
Yeah. And you're lucky you got to experience a lot of those things that a lot of people don't get to experience, but you were privileged. So,
Yeah.
congratulations on that. That's
I mean,
exciting.
it wasn't given to me. I'll be, I had to bust my ass for all that stuff.
Yes.
And I still
Yes.
do. Like people look at this and they think like I'm rich or something. Like, no,
Yep.
I'm like everybody else, like working paycheck to paycheck,
Yep.
take every dime that I have, extra dime that I have, and even ones I don't have, and it gets thrown into stuff like this. So
Yep. Nope. And I'm so glad that you told everybody that because a lot of people we have a studio in our house too, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, you're so rich! You have a studio." That does not mean I'm rich. Does
Probably
not
means
mean
you're
I'm
more
rich.
poor.
Yeah, I am poor. This is just things that we've worked for and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
But
It gets
man,
expensive.
oh
It's
man.
so expensive.
Yeah. Oh, music is expensive. Oh my goodness.
It's
But
it's
it's
one
a beautiful thing that makes so many people happy.
yeah. And
And
I think
that's,
investing in yourself is important. Honestly.
yes.
A lot of artists, especially younger artists now that I mean they're just learning. A lot
Yeah.
of them really well, they come up in a different era. Technology is very different. So,
Yes.
they're used to like a laptop in the corner and very simple setup. And technology has enabled that and made it great, accessible to far more people than it was like when I started. When I started, it was still reel to reels and stuff. And like it was a completely different animal. And you to get a good recording 20 years ago, you had to, be in a multi-million-dollar studio.
Yeah.
Uh, but now it's so much more accessible, and people don't necessarily see the value in investing in themselves. So like every time I have an artist that are younger, I tell them like invest in your own microphones, buy your own like in-ear things for when you're performing live.
Mm-hmm.
All those different little things, just invest in yourself.
Yep.
If you're willing to make the art, like put forth the effort to make it better.
Yep.
So
And that's exactly it. That's a very good key point that you said. Invest in yourself, because there's so many people that are like, "Oh, I don't have money, but I'm going to do music." And it's like, you got to have money to do music also, because you don't
work a few
want
more hours.
crappy recording.
Yeah,
Like, nobody
exactly,
wants crappy recording. We want to hear good. And
exactly.
then when you, because you've performed before, when you go on stage, do you get nervous? Or, no, that was a long time
Only
ago.
if I'm unprepared. So funny enough, like when I do shows or like when I was touring or even just doing shows now, and I don't do a ton of them. I kind of very picky with shows I do.
Yeah.
So I have certain standards that like when it comes to the sound system and the venue and the
Yep.
I'm not saying I need to perform in front of 10,000 people. That's not what I'm saying. It can be 20 people. It doesn't matter. It's really comes down to like I want to sound good, right?
Yep.
So I don't really get nervous unless I'm unprepared, because I like to do a lot of theatrics on stage. I like to have props and tell a story. So when I'm
Yeah.
thinking of my set, like I'm coming from that actor drama, like I was in drama and a bunch of plays when I was in high school and spent years doing that. And I think that instilled like the entertainment value of things. So I'll
Yeah.
do things, just as an example. One of the last shows I did, I have a song talking about a girl cutting herself,
Uh-huh.
and it's kind of dark. And so I have like this. I made this. Basically, I took a razor blade, took it apart, and put in like uh, a blood bag, basically that can trigger. So when I'm like literally cutting myself on stage, blood's pouring out. And I have other people up there like acting as medics, and like I'll throw a show. I don't look at it as like I'm gonna stand there and rap or sing a
Yeah.
song. Like I want people to go, what like I want them to connect deeper with what I'm saying than just
Mm-hmm.
standing there and rapping. Which, everybody starts somewhere,
Yes.
but like, I guess because I do that and I prepare that I'm usually not nervous. And though funny enough, like if I'm performing at some tiny little place and it's like just in front of my friends, then that's way more nervous to me than getting up in front of a sold out Roseland, you know, something like
Yeah.
that. Like that feels normal to a certain degree,
Yeah.
um, because it's just a crowd. It's just a body of faces. You don't really
Yeah.
like know, and like I just don't care. I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do, and you're gonna like it or not, one way or the other. It is what it
I
is.
like that. That's exactly it. If you don't like it, oh well. Like,
Yeah.
doesn't matter. I
Yeah.
like that. Good job. Good job. And then I've always asked this question because it's happened to Jay-Z, Beyonce, Justin Timberlake. It happens to everybody. It doesn't matter if you're famous or not famous. It does not matter. If the microphone went off on stage and you were in the middle of your performance, what would you do?
I plan for that.
Yeah. So
So
what happens?
uh, one of the tricks. I mean, there's a lot that technically goes into that for me because I actively set myself up to not be as big of a problem.
Yeah.
Um, I I have different mixes when I go perform live. So if it's like when I was touring with a hip hop group I had in the past, we'd have maybe three or four, sometimes five versions of each song, and not like, but they're mixed differently for the venue. And also, do I have my own sound? Is it a sound guy that's traveling with me regularly that knows my songs? That can assist me, like, right? So some will have more backing tracks than others. So if it's a venue or a place where I don't trust the PA, don't trust certain aspects where I'm like, this could be a problem, I'll have more backing tracks, higher. And also, like when I was doing that, I had a DJ that had all those, so he knew how to and he was really good at blending from one track to another, and his setup was set up in a way that he could flip into one of those if he needed to, if we were in a situation like that. But usually, because I'm so technical and anal about all that stuff,
Yes.
uh, I mean, I've built my own wires, like I've literally built and designed a multi-million-dollar studio in the past with that sound company. So like I have the experience of like going in there and like making sure stuff's right. We have backup cables, backup microphones on stage, backup, like
Yeah.
there's backups on backups, and I prefer to be prepared on stage. So if there is a glitch, it can be easily rectified quickly. And that I think comes with also experience, is like,
Yeah.
and thinking about that beforehand, not just trusting that when you show up to a venue, everything, works like, right.
Yeah, you
So,
can't do that
and
because
I would say out of most local, probably around the country, like smaller shows, it's just like, what's a sound check? What they come very unprepared, and it often shows, like because
yep.
of glitches or whatever. And if you spend that time ahead of time and plan, you can like rectify a lot of those situations so it isn't a huge problem.
Yeah.
Like even at Jay-Z, I guarantee you, there's probably three backup mics
No, I
sitting
guarantee
off
it.
stage, right?
Yes.
Like, and they have them tested. Like batteries die, a connection goes back. Like a million things can happen on the technical side, but that's why you have backups.
Yep. Exactly it. And then what is your favorite song you personally have done and why is it your favorite song?
That, you know what? I don't know if I even have a favorite song, to be honest. Like sometimes I just get sick of songs, like especially if I performed them a ton of times.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's a funny enough story, talking to, like, I met quite a few famous artists over the years and hung out with them, and they have the same kind of thing. A lot of them, I mean, some might have a favorite song that's personal to them, but like a lot of times, like especially their more popular songs, they hate performing. I
Yeah.
can countless artists right off the top of my head that I've literally had this conversation with, and they're like, their biggest hit that everybody, that people there to see, they're like, oh, I have to perform that song. They hate doing it because they've done it so much.
Yep.
So I don't have a favorite. I just tell the stories that what I feel, and whatever message I want to give, and kind of move on, I guess, when it comes to the creative process. So it's like on to the next, on to the next.
And then what is one excuse me, what is one good advice you have received from a musician that really has like stuck with you, like, okay, I'm going to keep this advice that they have told me?
Ooh, that's a tough question. I guess just like never give up, and don't worry about like when people, like if you perform bad, it's easy to feel like if you have like a bad set for any number of reasons, or you're just not feeling up to it or down or whatever, like it's like it'll get better, like
Yeah.
just keep moving forward, like there's going to be bad days, there's going to be times when you just can't figure out how to make a song, you're just like, everything I'm making today just sucks, and it's just, you're like, I've had many of those days. It's like I spent 8 hours and I literally couldn't even come up with a kick drum, like, or
Yeah.
whatever. So I guess just staying positive, and know that, not every day can be the perfect day, and just move forward. So I guess.
Absolutely. And then what is your favorite thing about the music entertainment in your city?
There are so many artists just in the Pacific Northwest. There's ridiculous. So I have a joke like so I during the day oftentimes I do Uber and Lyft. I drive for Uber and Lyft, and I run into all kinds of interesting people. But the conversation of music comes up quite often because people ask what I do, and um, they're like, "Oh, is there enough artists up here?" I'm like, "You could pretty much throw a rock at any direction in any house and probably find a rapper living in that house you just hit with a rock." Like, there's so many artists up here; they're just
Yes.
everywhere, which is great because it allows you to be creative with other artists and collaborate. And that's actually things I love most about one of the things I love most about music is all the collaboration that can take effect. I would rather honestly have an album all my songs having collaborators on them and other featuring other artists than an entire album of just me. Like
Yeah.
I'm boring. I want some other people in there to spice and change things up and give some flavor to this. So
Yes.
at least I mean I feel like I guess as an artist or all the creative things, like I'm always like self-doubting. I'm always like, oh, is this good enough? Like I mean, I've been doing this 22 years, and I've probably mixed 5 or 6 thousand songs in my life, like easily.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm still this day, I'm like, this mix sounds like crap. Like, like I just always self-doubting and checking, like, what do you think? What do you think? Like always. So I don't think that'll ever change.
I don't think it will either, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like I always tell my husband this because he's like, "You're my number one critic," but in all reality, you are your number one critic, and
Oh,
then everybody else will be critics to tell you
yes.
how it
And what's
is.
interesting, like, is I realized that very young. Like, even with my artwork, my mom would like, I'd do this thing. I'm like, this sucks. She's like, no, it's great. Like,
Yeah.
she would tell me like, because I had this like perfectionist mindset where the problem with being a perfectionist, you never get anything done. Like, you're always like tweaking and adding like forever. Like, you can literally work on one piece of art your entire life if you
Yep.
choose to do so. And, but you're never going to get it out there. So it's like, okay, at what point is this done? Or whatever that means. And so, yeah,
Yep. Nope. I get that. And then, what is one thing you do not like about the music entertainment in the Pacific Northwest?
some of the drama, uh,
I agree.
like, I mean, there's a lot of like little clicks and
Yes.
and they change all like people will be cool with each other for a while and then somebody will say something. It's not even like that bad, but like because artists are artists and they have their egos and they have their not only egos but also like self-doubt and
Yeah.
many of them hate themselves. Like
Yep.
artists are just messed up people. Like most of them, not maybe not every single one, but like the vast majority are like damaged individuals. So it's so easy to like trigger somebody. I hate that word, but to trigger somebody and to be like, what'd you say? And they weren't really even being mean, but you took it super, and then it
Yeah.
turns into this big drama thing. And I see it all the time. I deal with it
Yeah.
all the time, and it gets super annoying. But
Yep. I do too. It is so annoying and so frustrating. I always tell people, why can't we go to the back in the day where we all treated each other with respect? There was no fighting or any of that drama, but
I
I
would
guess
say
that's what,
honestly, like at least in hip hop, there's always been some friction there, like some
yeah.
sort of like beefs and dramas. I mean, and I would venture to guess it probably exists in all genres, just maybe some a
Yeah.
little more than others. But yeah, I mean, it's just that drama. Like, I mean, even when I started, I mean, back then there was always little cliques and drama. You didn't want to perform a certain venue because some other act was there that you didn't get along with,
Hmm.
or you're like afraid. Like, I mean, at times it got serious,
Yeah.
and we've all heard those stories of really tragic situations,
Yes.
and it comes from all that ego and that drama, and people can't just like chill out and settle down and be like, all right, let's talk it out. We may not agree, but let's just agree to disagree and move on.
Yep. Now Now our world is so corrupt that instead of going back in the days and vocalizing how, oh, you piss me off, now instead they're like, bang, you're done. And
Yeah,
it's disgusting. It's
I
wrong.
agree.
I don't like it at all. It
Oh,
makes me
I go on for
so mad.
hours about this and like
Yeah.
that kind of topic. So
Yeah,
me and
it's
you
it's a
talked about
sore
this.
topic. It's a sore
Yes,
topic. I don't even
for
want to
both
talk
of us.
about it, but
Yeah.
that's it. And then if you could change anything in the music entertainment and be known for that, what would you want to change and be known for?
Gosh, I want to change. Um, I mean, I guess literally what we were just talking about, changing that,
Yeah, the
changing,
drama.
changing the outlook. Like, you know what? Actually, like comedians have figured this out. Actually, um, because so in with we always feel like there's a scarcity. There's not enough opportunity. Like so and so is going to take this opportunity for me and that, this and that. Comedians over the last, and that was a big thing with comedians a long time ago because there was only so much opportunity because they were fighting for TV spots or a sitcom or whatever. But guys like Joe Rogan and many other comics started podcasting and then literally teaming up and helping each other and collaborating in that way, growing their fan bases and it became comedy has never been bigger now than it has, you know, ever, like this as big as it's ever been. And I think a lot of it has to do with just that is the cross promotion acceptance of one. I mean, I'm sure there's still little beefs here and there, but
Of
it's far
course.
less than what it was. And I think the
Mhm.
music industry and the creative industry in general, whether you're talking about music or you're talking about film or whatever, that all could apply. So
Yeah,
that's what I would change.
absolutely. And then, do you have any upcoming events for your music?
I don't have any shows planned right now. I mean, I do get asked quite a bit to do different shows, so I mean that it can just pop up. I usually post that like either on my website or like on my Spotify, or, like on all the different platforms. It's pretty obvious if you follow me on anything. You know, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, there's a show coming up. So, but I don't have any shows coming up. I have lots of projects I'm working on with artists
Nice.
that I'm working on a Whitey Northwest album right now with him, which is incredible. It's absolutely incredible so far. That dude is so talented. It's ridiculous. Um,
Oh,
and I mean, just a lot of those guys in that group that kind of surround him are super talented. And so it's an honor to work with a lot of these guys. There's some of the Juggalo rappers that I've done stuff with. Um, Guys from Seattle, like oh, why can't I think of his name? I'm gonna feel so bad. But there's just so many talented artists that I'm working with right now that it's just awesome. You know,
awesome.
yeah.
That's exciting. Okay, I'm going to switch over to the producer questions now because I'm like, the rest of them I can incorporate into this. How long have you been in the music entertainment world? I know you said in high school you did acting and all that. Did you do it prior to high school or no?
No, I didn't. Well, I mean, I sang in a few choirs as a kid, but like
Mm-hmm.
my voice, like I completely changed and everything else. And so, but I didn't really. I got into music shortly after high school. I was in college. I was like 20 years old, I think, and my life was just utter chaos, and and that's actually how I got my name, because it's like just a re lettering of a mythological god of chaos. So uh, my life was utter chaos, and music saved my life, honestly, many
That's
times.
awesome.
Um, and I got into it just from being an artist to becoming a producer, and because I had no one else to record me. So I remember that remember going to Radio Shack and buying a microphone, and I literally still have it today. And as far as I know, I'm the only person that has like this mic. Like I cannot find it anywhere on the internet other than
That is
my.
awesome.
So it's
Keep it
it's a super
forever.
rare mic, huh?
I was
What was
like,
that?
keep it forever.
Oh, it's in my mic locker glass case right now. It's up there. But so I taught myself production out of necessity, and I started out. I just had this crappy like computer. I think it was like a Dell or something. I mean, just some computer. Literally plugged the mic straight directly into the Sound Blaster sound card from. You remember those from the '90s? Absolutely not designed for music production. They're terrible audio interface. They're not even audio interface, but it has like a mic input for when you're gaming, right? Sounds absolutely atrocious. Um, and I just started downloading uh, basically hacked software, pirating software because I was broke as hell, and I didn't have no money, and literally in my bedroom holding a microphone, rapping into it. Back then, like DAWs were just barely getting started. Like they weren't even really a thing. I mean, they kind of were, but they weren't. And if you don't know what DAW is digital audio workstation. So like your software that you record into,
Mm-hmm.
and so I had to like Jimmy rig a bunch of stuff to make it work. Like I remember I downloaded Fruity Loops,
Yep.
which is super popular now. It's actually the most popular DAW of all time at this point. It's been downloaded more than anything else. I downloaded. I had version 3 point something. Basically, right when it actually became somewhat of a DAW. It was still like very rudimentary. Before that, it was just like a MIDI sequencer that you would plug into like external like hardware to like external synths and stuff because it didn't have like it was just MIDI only before that. And so like it was super rudimentary. You couldn't even record audio directly into the Fruity Loops yet at that point. You had to like just drag audio in and move it around. So I had another audio recording piece of software. It was basically like a voice recorder, a little bit better, but basically that. So I'd play the beat on one program and record into the other, then export that, drag it in there, and try to time align it. Like it was the most janky thing, but like this is like year 2000. Like
Yeah.
and software was super like if you wanted I think Pro Tools maybe been out for a year or two or something. We're still pretty new at that point, way above my budget. Like, I mean, you're talking like hundreds of thousands of dollars to get a Pro Tools setup back then. And so it was just and software started getting developed, and I'd constantly be jacking it from the internet because I was just broke, and eventually started buying stuff. But
Yeah.
it was so like raw and so just like figure it out by the seat. Like I remember like, oh, I could pan the audio to the left, to the right. That's crazy. And like just the stupidest things like that you take advantage. Like kids now, like, duh, all this stuff is super, accessible now. But back
Yeah.
then, to get a recording done, it was challenging. It took a lot. So
Oh my goodness.
that's kind of
That
where.
is, you got memories,
Oh
memories.
yes.
That is awesome. And then I always ask my producers slash musicians, do you write your own lyrics?
Yes. Do that. I mean, there was a point in time I was writing, recording, mixing, and mastering 3 songs a day. I'd make the beat, write the lyrics, record it, mix and master it, like literally 3 of them a day.
Good job. That
And,
is work.
yes.
That's
Well,
a
yeah.
lot.
If you do it enough, you get pretty quick at it. Like
Yeah.
there was actually a point in time where I could get a rough mix without even listening to it. I just knew where stuff should be.
Yeah.
Like I'd been doing it so much, I'm like, okay, it wouldn't be like a finish, but it would sound good. It wouldn't be terrible, and I wouldn't even have to listen to it. I did it just to demonstrate it a few times to a few buddies in the studio. I'm like, watch this. Like, I just record it, like wouldn't even hear it, and it'd just be there, play it, and they'd be like, that's not terrible. Like, I mean, yeah, we got more work to do, but it sounds all right. So.
Wow. Wow. And have you ever wrote anybody else's music for them?
From like a lyrics perspective,
Yeah.
yeah, a few. I mean, like I don't like remember who exactly. I mean, I know I've done it,
Yeah.
but I mean, like worked on so many songs, like, and sometimes it's just like helping assist them.
Yeah.
Like that's often the case. It's like they're sitting there writing, um, and they're trying to come up with the next line, and they're just kind of stuck. And it's like sometimes you'll help with that. That's pretty
Of
common for
course.
producers and engineers,
Yeah.
especially the producer side. I
Yeah.
think I think honestly though, like producers and engineers have kind of blended into the same, like into kind of the same
Same.
person, you know, to a
Yeah.
certain degree.
Yeah. And then what makes a good song?
Impact. Um, you know, like making sure. I think it's finding something that you know resonates with somebody, as well as so often that's why you find like really personal songs that resonate with people because they're like just opening up everything they have to that song, and that those are the things that can like drive emotion in your listeners or whoever's listening to it, like where they'll start crying, you know, like if
Yep.
you're getting that impact, like or any kind of emotional impact, that's what makes a great song is and a lot of that has to do with, you know, music theory and like, you know, having the chords go certain ways and things. You can go deep down that rabbit hole, but that plays a role obviously. But at the end of the day, it's just, is it a good song? Is it impactful to more people? You know,
Yep.
so I guess that's what makes it.
Impact is a good one for that because there's good songs and there's bad songs and there's confusing songs. There's so many different kinds of music, and so impact is definitely that's a good word for that one. That's a good answer.
It can be
Really good
different.
answer.
It can be different for different people too. Like one song may be super impactful for you, but like me, it doesn't resonate with me for
Yeah.
whatever reason.
Yep.
And you know, so sometimes you hear this like, oh, that's a bad song, like, or that's a bad beat or whatever, and
Mm-hmm.
it, you know, it may not resonate with that person, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad, right? Because
Yep.
another person may be like, this is the greatest thing I've ever heard in my life, like,
Yep.
you know.
And
um,
that's true.
Yep. I mean, I've
Very
had
good.
many letters over the years from like on songs like that from people that like a song that I did like help them get through a dark time or
Yeah.
whatever. Like that cutting song that I was talking about earlier. Literally
Yeah.
got literally that song was written about that. So it, there was another song they listened to that had that impact for them, and they wrote me a very inspiring letter telling me the story, and that song is based off of their experiences of cutting and the things that they went through. I made it a little darker just to add a little more impact to it
Yeah.
from the story side of things, but you know, it was their story that impacted me, that inspired me to write it, that other people then got impacted by that story. So
Mm-hmm.
you know, come around full circle there.
That's awesome though. That's cool that you took their story and made it a song. I like that. That's really cool actually. Really, really cool.
Inspiration
It's
can come from anywhere, you know, like I
yes.
mean, people like you interviewed Pistol Page the other day, like she inspires me all the time, like she's my roommate, and she comes down and starts playing my keyboard, and I'm like, man, I wish I could play like that, like she's so super talented. So people around me, like other artists and just experiences in life are just, that's what creates the art, all kinds of art
Yeah.
that we experience this world is inspiration from other people, other human beings.
Yes, and that's true. It's very, very true. So I want to ask this question. If I was to hire you for a producer slash engineer, why should I hire you?
Experience, as well as like I listen and try to create, I try to get your song to what uh, impacted you to write it in the first place. I want to add to that in a way that creates it more, makes it more impactful, makes it more your song, right?
Yeah.
My job as a producer and engineer is to serve the artist and try to get the not only the best performance, like if they're coming in to record, like I definitely don't. Uh, so like a lot of times producers that, especially if they're newer and they're dealing with somebody that maybe is a lot higher level than them,
Mm-hmm.
like somebody's famous or even semi-famous that they look up to. Oftentimes they're scared to like go, it wasn't a good take or that was this or that, right? They're like,
Mm-hmm.
whatever this guy wants, right?
Yep.
And then especially that exists on the, like guys like Eminem, right? And there's countless stories of producers like, I'm scared to tell him no. I'm scared to this, right? I don't look at it that way. I don't look at, no matter how famous somebody is, you're hiring me to get the best job possible. Like you want the best product at the end of the day. And for that, I'm gonna be like, that take was whack, or like, I mean, I'm not gonna be rude about it, but I mean, this depends on also the relationship we have, right?
Yes.
So like certain artists, like we have a much closer relationship where we can bust balls, and that's part of the creative process. Like,
Yep.
but then other ones, you just have to be. I think as a good producer slash engineer, you need to have a little bit of like maybe psychology, kind of like take notice of what people, how they feel, how they interact with other people, what kind of vibe is that person like, all that, what's their personality like. So you have to take all that into account and then use that information and what kind of song they're making and try to coax them in a way that you're going to get the best performance out of them. Maybe give them some ideas when you're mixing or doing sound design, like, oh, let's try this might be a cool like transition here or whatever, just finding little ways to really like polish the product, really get a good product in general.
No.
And it's about that personal relationship you have with that artist, really, more than anything. Is That's probably the most important thing. Like anybody, I think, can learn how to turn knobs and throw a compressor up and learn. Like given enough time, you can learn how to use a compressor and EQ and different things. That's not necessarily the hard part. The hard part is that personal relationship and developing that and trying to find a place that sits well with them with their music. So
Yeah. No, I agree with that because I go back to my husband. He always, my brother-in-law just, he passed, unfortunately, and he was always the one person that we went to and would say, hey,
mm-hmm.
listen to this, what do you think? Liz already listened to it, I want your input. You always got to get other inputs and be honest about it. If it sucks, it sucks. Hey,
Yeah,
bro, you got to switch it up. Like, let's put your voice up a little bit higher. I know
yeah,
you got it. That's all it takes. It might piss the person off, but guess what? In the end, when they get that end product, they're going
yeah,
to be so thankful that you did tell the truth.
yeah. You would hope. I
Voice.
mean, some people do have big egos, and you have to like learn
Yeah.
how to deal with those egos.
Yes. Yes.
That's a thing, like that a lot of like without throwing anybody under the bus, like there's people that I work with, that I'm close friends with, that sometimes they can be a bit much. But
Yes.
because I have a long relationship with them, I understand how to communicate with them in a way that like they can chill back, right? If they didn't
Yeah.
know me, that might not work, right? But
Yeah.
um, so
It
yeah, it's
goes all back
definitely,
to the relationship. You have to build a relationship with the person. You
yeah,
have to.
and you
And
get the best art that way.
yep.
When you have those collaborative things where people are brutally honest about what they think about this song or whatever, that's where you take that next step up, where you level up, where you
Yep.
get to, you're like, oh, that. And sometimes it's just really small things, but those all matter. Making a piece of music, I find that is a cumulative effect of small percentages. So when like mixing, like as a perfect example, like I'm not going to throw one compressor and just crank that compressor up super hard on one track. Like it's like, oh, I'm just going to massage it a little bit here, a little EQ, just small percentages. And then the cumulative effect over through the whole track, whether that's sound design choices or mixing choices or little things, extra things that you may have added in the booth that you didn't think was important maybe at the time. Like little yeahs or little background things or
Mhm.
little sparkly things, like whatever. All those little tiny percentages add up, and that's what gets you there, I think.
And I agree with you on that because it's not just, oh, I'm going to sing my song. It's you have to break it down and mold it. Don't just go in there and,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I did it, I'm done. No, let's
Yeah, it's like
mold
it's like
it.
using a sledgehammer for something you should be using a tweezer on.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly it. And then what is your favorite instrument?
Ooh, that changes all the time. Like as far as like what I have, or just in general.
In general.
Uh, I probably a keyboard, a synthesizer keyboard, like like some sort of workstation keyboard, just because they're versatile. You
Yeah.
know, it's a pretty, you can, it's easy to understand music theory on them. It's easy to, um, tons of different sounds. You can shape things, right? Guitar is a little more, I think, limited. Other instruments have very specific sounds. So I guess I just out of versatility, if I only had to have one instrument, a nice
Keyboard.
workstation synthesizer, something of, that's $2,000 to $5,000 kind of price range in the current market, like something of that, because they're going to be well diverse in most cases.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it's like literally why I have like the Yamaha Modi X. It's a very has a thousands and thousands of sounds in it, and you can play all kinds of stuff in it, and it's real diverse. Though that
Absolutely.
being said, like nowadays you can do all that with software, with with some of these higher end packs and stuff that you can, like software suites and stuff like Native Instruments has and stuff, which is all I also have that, and it's great. But I guess if you're talking about just an instrument, I'd say that. So it's more
And
diverse.
keyboard. And then I asked this because this is a question that I'm like, we're gonna give him a little test. Who is your favorite producer slash engineer in the Pacific Northwest? And you can choose yourself. If it is yourself, that is completely fine.
Favorite producer in the Northwest. Uh, I would say one of my best friend, but he doesn't really do it anymore. Though he keeps some of his gear in my studio. But gosh, in the Northwest. I really haven't really thought about that ever. As far as like who would be my favorite here. I mean, obviously, I could say bigger names like that are worldwide kind of people. Like a Dr. Dre or something. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't really. I guess I don't really have any favorite in the Northwest,
Okay.
unfortunately.
That's completely fine. And then other than producing and engineering, what are some of your hobbies that you do?
I do video production, basically cinematography, visual effects, CGI, 3D modeling, animation. Um, so like, like pretty high level stuff, like stuff that you would find in like a Hollywood studio kind of
Yeah.
thing. Um, Part of it is like I got into that because I got burnt out from music for a while,
Yeah.
because I was doing it so much, like during that time where I was recording 3 songs a day and touring and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
I got so burnt out because I was sleeping like 2 hours a night. So I got in like shortly after I got into like vlogging, and then started learning how to edit videos, and then that I was like, oh, how do I kind of spice this up more, right? And started learning how to do like visual effects, and then I was like, oh, that's cool. Like I'm compositing this on that, whatever. Like how do I make it better? Like how do I next level it up? It's like, oh, I'll learn how to 3D model. So
Yeah.
and then that learns you just kind of all those things start coming together into one thing. So now like with music and video and stuff, like I feel like I have all the skills. I could literally do a one man movie, if
Yeah, that's
I
awesome.
had the
That
I had the
literally,
budget to like not do anything else for my life for 5 years, because the time and effort that it takes to make that level of stuff, especially in the CGI world, people really don't understand. Like, so I guess that's a hobby. Sometimes I make money from it, but I'm very picky on stuff I work on,
yeah.
just because when it comes to the video stuff, like music artists, for example, will like, oh, can you do a music video for me? They'll see some like visual effect I did, and they're like, oh, that's crazy. Can you do this in my music video? And then they give me all these ideas, and I'm like, no, because you don't have the budget for that. Like,
Yeah.
just like you have like $500 or something. Like, try adding about 3 or 4 more zeros to that we can talk. Just because like they don't understand like the time and effort
Yeah.
and skill it takes. Like,
Yeah.
some of that's like my computer I have here, I built for that purpose, for doing 3D and stuff, which is it's so overkill for music. But I mean, I spent more on my computer than I did my car. Actually, my computer is my most expensive thing I've ever purchased in my life at this point.
Oh wow. Wow.
It was like like $22,000 for it.
Oh my lord.
So it because of the reason I spent that kind of money on it because I hate waiting to have my creative ideas. I want to be creative and keep moving. If I have to like jimmy rig and find workarounds for 500 things to like make this kind of work, like it's not it's so frustrating and not worth doing for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but but I mean, I didn't start with that. Like I started with a smaller computers and worked my way up. It wasn't like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm just going to learn how to do it. I'm going to spend a quadrillion dollars on something. And no idea, like that's.
Absolutely.
But that's what I do for hobbies. Like do full on like 3D animation and stuff. And I have a lot of friends all over the world, in fact, that do 3D and stuff. So sometimes we'll collaborate on stuff or whatever, and learn from each other in general. So it's always
Nice.
fun.
That's awesome. Cool hobbies. Cool. I like that. That's awesome. I'm
Did you
interested.
did you see the Chris Calico music video I did? I think I sent you the link for it.
I think you did send me the link for it. Yes.
So the visual effects in that I did that. So all the holographic screens and stuff I'm moving around. Like
Wow.
that I did all that. That was pretty easy. I did that pretty quickly.
Oh my lord. Well, you are all in one. The boss,
I
I should say.
just get bored. I just get bored. That's all it is.
And then, what is one of your weaknesses as a producer slash engineer?
Um, Weaknesses. I guess maybe obsessing over like not knowing it all.
Yeah.
Like I strive to learn about
Yeah.
like that's a big thing for me. It's like literally more than half of my day, every single day, is spent learning about something. Like learning and educating myself about the world, about music, about whatever is super important to being, I think, a well-rounded human being. And
Absolutely.
so I guess that's my weakness sort of is like I obsess about like, oh, I need to learn more about this thing or like learning more techniques to be better at what I do because I'm like
Yeah.
obsessed about it. And I feel like I'll never get to a point where I'm like good enough where I'm like, oh man, if I was just a little bit better, if I was just like, so I guess it's that self-doubt and
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
What do you think is your strength as a engineer and producer?
Um, open to ideas, open to input from even like beginning producers that have been producing for just a couple of years that um, I'm more than happy to listen to them because they're more than likely going to do things differently than the way I do things.
Yeah.
And because of that, it allows me an opportunity to learn and get better at what I do. And so being humble, I think, in that respect is like super important and I think one of my strengths. Um, Obviously, like I have a lot of experience and I know what I'm
Yeah.
doing, and that somebody said about that as well. But definitely realizing you don't know everything
Yeah.
and it's important to get better.
Yeah. You're always wanting to learn. I like that. And who would you love to work with in the music game as a producer? Anybody. They can be famous, not famous. It could be me, for God's sake. I don't care. Just somebody that you are like, I would like to work with them and see what I could do with them.
Actually, the last producer you interviewed, what's his name? I'm drawing a blank. He produces
Um,
for Studio 21 sometimes.
oh, the blonde boy?
Yes.
Yeah,
Gosh, I'm like, say
Nick
it,
something,
yeah,
right?
yes.
Yes,
I've
Nick.
talked to him, and he's said he's totally down. So I'm anxious to work with him and see what we can come up with.
Ooh, that's gonna be good.
So I mean, uh, I guess anybody really. Like I just like working with other people creatively. Um, like I have artists coming up all this week, and I have quiz coming over Quizilla later this week. Hopefully, nothing gets in the way of that. I've worked with him before. It's been a while. I mean, we've known each other forever, but just had different things going on, and so
Yeah.
he's like, yeah, I told him like, just come over. Let's just schedule like a bi-weekly thing where you just come over for the day and we just make stuff and see what
Yeah.
happens, like with no
Yeah.
like specific direction. And so that should be interesting because like we have completely different perspective or different like direct ways of coming at creating music. So
Yeah.
that should be fun. There's just a lot, just everybody really, anybody that doesn't have a giant ego, I guess they
Yes.
cut off. As long as you
Yeah.
leave your ego at the door, I'm down. So,
Yeah. And then explain to me your personal creative process to doing music.
ooh, I think one thing about my creative process is I don't have one. Um, I mean, there is, but like, I try really not to be. See, a lot of producers, like when they're making beats, they have a very specific way of doing it. Usually, um, they'll, some will start with the drums, or some will start with a melody, or some, they'll have a very clear cut template, so to speak, of how they work through a song. I, from ever ago, thought that was very limiting and very like boxes you into a certain thing. So oftentimes I'll like try to like go, how can I just do something different here? Like,
Yeah.
am I gonna record like the cabinet closing, like, and then play that through like a speaker in another room and record the reverb of it, and like just get crazy and creative with whatever's around, like play a guitar like upside, like whatever, like come up with weird ways of making sounds. It's kind of one of the
Mm-hmm.
reasons why I buy random like weird synthesizers, like and stuff, just because I want something to be different,
Yep.
like, yeah.
You gotta be different because everybody wants to be somebody. And it's like, no, I don't want to be like them. I want to be myself and be different. So that's good that you want to be different and have those different unique sounds and
Yeah.
stuff. That
Well,
that to me, you've got a good brain for that.
another thing about it is avoiding copyright issues,
Ooh, yeah.
with, because especially in hip hop right now and the way the industry is and the beat making industry and selling beats and like placements on major artists and things of that nature, there's all these sample libraries, right? And you find a lot of like producers, they'll take these things from, and they'll just start plopping them onto tracks. You'll take a melody from this sample library and a drum loop from here and whatever, they're just and they're not really doing much to them. And then
Mhm.
they start getting claimed by Content ID, which is a whole nother. Their system is all jacked up. It doesn't even like. I've literally like made custom beats literally on stream, and YouTube flags as copyright, and I'm like, what? Like,
Oh
how is
yeah.
that? Like literally, I'm like, so there's. I find that if I do use anything like that, for example, like I'm tweaking it so much, like reversing it, I'm pitching it, I'm running it through different filters, through different like whatever I can do to like change that characteristic of that sound. And so that's part of my workflow is taking everything and turning it into something else. So
Yeah.
for multiple reasons.
Yes. And then do you only work with people in the Pacific Northwest or do you work international with anybody and everybody you're willing
Well,
to work with?
I'll, I will work with anybody. I used to do a lot of like collaborative stuff, whether it was mixing or whether it was mastering or editing or recording like remotely for way before the pandemic. Been doing that basically almost since the internet. Basically, like probably like 2005 or six is when I started literally using the internet to collaborate with people all over the world.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, more than down to work with anybody.
That's awesome. That's good, good, good. And if you could use one word to describe yourself, what would that word be and why would you choose that word?
Driven.
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 Hey,
Uh,
yes.
because good or bad, like I have this weird like complex with sitting around. Like I generally just don't watch TV unless I'm just going to sleep.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm always basically if I'm awake, I'm working pretty much, whether
Yeah.
it's my day job or this uh, or whatever. Like I feel guilty for taking time to relax. Like I feel like a piece of garbage if I'm like sitting there watching a TV pro. Like I just feel so horrible about myself that like I don't let myself do it. Generally speaking,
Hmm.
so driven is a good word for me because I just always pushing to be better to yeah. So
I'll be honest, that was the word that I was going to choose for you. So that is a perfect word for you, is driven, because you love to keep learning. And everything in our world, like, we have to keep learning. You have
well,
to.
I also don't think like things are unattainable, right? Like I don't think there's things that I can't do. In generally speaking, like the whole world around us was built by everyday people.
Yep.
Like everything you look around, like the house you're living in, the car you're driving, the iPhone, your everything that we as human beings keep innovating and pushing forward is created by everyday people. You know, some are smarter than others, but like generally speaking, like there's for most people, there's nothing you can't really do if you put forth the effort. And you know, it may take you a year to accomplish that goal. It might take you 30. You
Yeah.
know, but at the end of the day, like it's it's just that it's like anybody can like there's if I wanted to be a doctor, I could have been. If I wanted to be
Yeah.
like what's the way I look at things like and when it comes to there's just nothing that like when I set my mind to something, I do it. I did
Yep.
that in sports. Like I was very successful and as an athlete, and that was part of that mindset. Like my dad he gave me a quote. I think it was said by Vince Lombardi, I believe. But success is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. He wrote that on the back of one of his business cards when I was a kid, probably in junior high school, maybe. And I kept that in my wallet for like 25 years, like that thing. It always reminded me of like there's nothing you can't achieve if you put forth the effort. Even giant obstacles come your way, which I've had to overcome. Like in my early 20s, I got in trouble with the law. Was
Hmm.
racing cars, got a felony for going super fast in an area I shouldn't have been going super fast in, pretty insane speeds. And you know, just being a kid, being dumb, you know, like
Yeah.
many teenagers and early 20s, like when in that age, teenagers and early 20 people are stupid. Let's be real. Like they make bad decisions in general. Like, oh, this sounds like a good idea, and it's just part of growing up, part of
Yeah.
being. And so like that definitely affected me and made me have to like. That's literally kind of what caused me to get into music was that event, me getting a
Yeah.
felony, and it especially at that time, it was so hard to get a job as a felon. Like it
Oh,
was a
yeah.
nightmare.
Yeah.
And so I literally just kind of I fought my way through, got into some management, and then started my own businesses and everything. So like there's nothing you can't achieve. Like it doesn't matter what it is. Like you can do it. You know, that's
If
why
you
it's
put your mind to it, you can achieve anything.
yes.
I've always believed in that. Always, always, always. And then, what is some advice you would give an upcoming producer slash engineer?
Invest in yourself.
Invest in
Like
yourself.
if that's your goal, if your goal is to become a producer engineer, invest in yourself. And that can be a lot of different things. That can be education. That's obviously important.
Yes.
And that doesn't necessarily mean you go to school for it. I think nowadays, like probably like in vast majority of cases, it's not worth going to school to be an audio engineer or producer or anything in those fields for the most part. I mean, there's obviously outliers to that, but
Yeah.
so you know, I guess the benefit of schooling would be the connections you make more than what you learn. Honestly, is really the connections that you meet in school. But just invest in yourself, whether that's education, whether that's upgrading equipment on a regular basis. I do both. I have a budget basically every month. I spend $1,000 back into this.
Yeah.
whether it's gear, software licensing, like some of it's just maintenance stuff, like all the software licensing. But a
Yeah.
lot of it's like buying new gear, buying upgraded gear, learning, taking classes and learning from people, um, seeking out information. Just invest in yourself, your craft. Not only to be better at what you do, but just I think it's better you as a human being, like to invest in yourself.
Absolutely. And what's your favorite style of music to work with as a producer?
I mean, hip hop is my number one. But that being said, like I take things from all kinds of different um, genres, I guess.
Hmm.
Right now, I'm like kind of on a big like kick with like lo-fi stuff. I've been making a lot of like lo-fi inspired beats. They're not necessarily like 100% lo-fi. There's like a kind of a blend, but there's that lo-fi vibe to them, a chill vibe often. So I've just been making lots of those just because like I've been experimenting with Native Instruments' new um, plugin or new software suite has like 90,000 sounds in it or something. And
Nice.
so I've just been experimenting with all that stuff. And so I was getting a lot of really cool, like lo-fi, like texture-based movement to sound and stuff. Yeah. Uh, oh,
That's
actually, one thing I wanted to add to that, the advice:
hmm
invest in good monitors, speakers. Like, if you could, whatever the most expensive you can afford, like I mean, you should do research on which ones will suit you best, but like invest in good monitors. They will change your life. Like
What do you, so I'm going to ask you this question because we have a studio downstairs, but we also have a producer that is not in the US. What would you say is the best speaker as a producer yourself?
what price budget are we talking about? Because that could be 10 different things.
I don't know. I
I'll,
just
I'll,
want to know
I'll
a
give
good
you
speaker.
a couple like S price ranges. How about that?
Yes.
So on the lower end, um, like if you're talking maybe like under $200 for or about $200 for a pair, probably like Cali Audio makes like the LP6 and the LP8. Those I think are around there. It might be LP8s might be a little more expensive, and those are okay. Like they're not bad. You're definitely
Hmm.
gonna have some. You're definitely going to need to do your car checks and check on multiple sources. And then up from there, maybe some like Atom speakers. There's quite a few different line, like I believe it's the TV7 off the top of my head, I believe. Those are kind of their budget friendly, and they make some stuff that goes all the way up to the elite stuff. Um, and then, there's like Atoms are very popular and they're very good speakers in that mid range stuff. From there, if you're going to the upper end stuff, start looking at like this is more like professional stuff, like what I'm
Hmm.
about to talk about. This is not for the hobbyist. Uh,
Hmm.
so you got companies like ATC, PMC, um, Focal. Focal actually has some lower end stuff that's pretty good too. That's like in that mid range, maybe like under $1,000 for a pair that are really good. But they also have some really high end stuff too that's really good. And Barefoot's what I use. Barefoot's got like, let's put it this way: if my house was burning down and my data was safe, and I could only grab one thing out of like as long as my computer was safe and my data was safe, the first thing I'd grab would be my speaker. After that, like they're incredible. Um, the Barefoot start at like I think 3,500 for a pair, and they go up to like I think 80,000 for a pair. So yeah, they're
Oh
I mean,
Lord.
and PMC and ATC have ones like that. They go up into the hundreds of thousands
Yeah.
for speakers too. So those are like mastering level, high level engineer stuff. But the clarity you get, like with I have the Barefoot. Uh, they're called the Footprint O2s is the brand. There's the model number. It's their smallest speaker. But they're a three-way speaker. They have two woofers on the side, so it's the one right behind my head right there. So
Hmm.
they look kind of weird. So the woofers are on the sides of the speakers, and there's two of them. They're perfectly tuned to fire exactly at the same time sideways. Then you have the mid at the top speaker, the very top black cone there. That's
Uh-huh.
the mid. Right below that's a tweeter. It has a radiator tweeter, so it's kind of shaped so it has like a point that sticks out. It kind of looks like if you were to drop like a rock into a pond and you see that
The
like
ripple.
that's what the tweeter looks like. It looks like you just dropped a rock and it comes up and all these like waves come out. So it's a very
Wow.
unique design. Reason why I love it so much is it gives such a wide sweet spot. Meaning you don't have to like a lot of cheaper monitors or mid-range monitors. You need to kind of sit in a very specific, have the speakers in a very specific triangle. You need to be in that. Like usually most speakers, you want the center points to be just behind your head. Like if you were to like equal distance between the speakers and yourself to each other. So most speakers are like that. Higher end speakers, and that's caused because of the wave guides and the tweeters usually. So like higher end frequencies are more directional, lower or more omnidirectional, meaning they kind of just go out every direction, low frequencies. So that affects the sweet spot. So if you start moving around and you don't have a speaker that has a very wide dimensional sweet spot, that you start like missing frequencies. Things start like causing phase issues and canceling frequencies out. I mean, this is like gets down into like the deep rabbit hole of this stuff. Like if you were to take like two speakers in a perfectly symmetrical room, you were perfectly in the right spot, you flip the phase of one of the speakers, you would hear nothing. They would cancel each other out. Perfect world. Obviously that doesn't really exist in most places. But that's where phasing comes in. Higher end speakers deal with that better. And another reason I love these speakers is because of the woofers firing sideways, that there's no cabinet noise. So pretty much every speaker, the speaker's facing forward. You have the cabinet that the speaker exists in. Like in a perfect world, the speaker would exist by itself in free space and there'd be nothing around it. Obviously, physics prevent that from happening. So they have to be mounted to something, i.e. a cabinet, and those cabinets are tuned in different ways. But these basically eliminate all the cabinet noise because the phase is canceling each other out. So you don't get any vibrations even on super low frequencies that are pumping super hard. It's another reason why they're so great. So you don't get interaction between like what they're standing on. So like I have them sitting on sound isolators that even remove even more vibrations. And then those are detached and not even attached to the desk. So all those things are separated to remove vibrations. So all you're hearing is what you're supposed to be hearing. So when you set your speakers up like that and you have higher end speakers, your mixes, you can mix much more efficiently. You can hear what's going on, especially at the crossover points in the amps. So like these are three-way speakers. So there's two crossover points between the high, mid, and low frequencies. So the more crossover points you have in a speaker, the more accurate and more detailed stuff you can get out of it. I mean, there's a lot that goes into that, but the key is really just to get a pure sound and be able to hear exactly the truth of what's going on. In a really high-end speaker like that, you'll put on like something super well. Like when I got these, I played a bunch of like Dr. Dre songs that I've heard for decades. I know them super well. I was hearing things in those songs I've never heard before. I was one song I heard a mic get bumped that I've never heard before, but it was a super subtle. But these speakers heard
Picked it up.
and represented it, and it was
Wow.
It like every person, every producer and person that's super into music or whatever that comes over here and they listen to these, they go, "I hate you now," because they're like, now I have to go buy these,
Yeah.
and they're like, I have like $300 pair of speakers, like this is like a huge jump, but they realize like what that allows them to do. It not only like makes you more efficient, but it makes you better at what you're doing. You can make better decisions. Like really making music is decision making, problem solving.
Yes.
So if you don't have all the information, then it's hard to do that efficiently. So if I have to go redo a mix 12 times because I'm not hearing little things because my speakers in my room is not representing the sound very well, then that's just a waste of time and effort, and it creates frustration not only for you but also like if you're doing this for an artist and you're sending mixes off, they're like, bro, we're on 15 mixes now, like what the f,
Yeah.
like, when are we going to get this done, kind of thing, and some are a little more okay with it than others, but like it's really important, I think, as you start developing your skills and you're like, what's the biggest upgrade that I can, or biggest two would be room acoustics and then
Yeah.
speakers. So those are the biggest things, like as far as
Mm.
advice to give a producer. Room acoustics, sound, which I still need to improve a little bit here, but it's not too bad. But yeah, it's
Definitely. I just
always
wrote
important.
that down because I'm definitely going to be telling my husband and our producer, like, hey,
I
guys, these are two things. Let's
if if
upgrade.
if you have any questions, feel free, just reach out. Like I'm more than happy to help, guide information.
Absolutely.
Like, so yeah, totally
Thank
down to
you.
help you out with that. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And then what do you personally think is the difference between mixing and mastering? Because a lot
Well,
of people are like, oh, it's the same thing. No, it's not.
definitely not. So today, like in today's age, it's a little different than it was 10 plus years ago.
Yeah.
Um, just the approach of doing it can be different. It doesn't have to be. It can be, because technology and stuff is allowed some different workflows that I don't want to get super technical about it, but um, mixing basically is taking all your individual tracks, all your sounds, finding a way to blend them all together. Excuse me, and find a balanced mix, right? So the first thing you do, like as a professional mixer, especially after there's kind of like four stages. There's songwriting stage, then there's the tracking stage, which is usually a different engineer. Sometimes it's the same one. And the tracking is like recording of all these things, right? Getting like your guitars recorded, getting your synthesizer, whatever, your vocals, all that stuff. That's a tracking phase. Then it goes into the mixing phase. Mixing, you want to kind of just take everything and just find the balance of stuff. So I'll just pull all the faders down, or if I'm starting with, like, say somebody sends me something to mix, I'll just pull the faders down and I'll just start pushing things up. And I'm trying to quickly make decisions about where things should sit, not only volume wise, but like in the space of the stereo spectrum. And if you're mixing Atmos, that's a whole nother kettle of fish. That's actually something
Yeah.
I'm trying to get into soon, but I want to get into that. But so you're kind of finding the levels of everything, panning things, and then you're like, okay, generally levels are here. Now you're going in, you're applying EQs, you're trying to carve out space for stuff. Like, like you're gonna carve out, like, for example, like a heavy electric guitar, you may carve out that middle because you need to have room for your vocals, right? But you
Mm-hmm.
still want you. So it's fine. It's carving out and boosting and cutting EQ frequencies so that each instrument, each sound has its own place in the spectrum of the soundscape, from your 20 hertz up to 20 plus kilohertz. And so you're just trying to find its little home wherever it's going to live, right? And
Yeah.
you're applying compression and any effects like reverbs to create depth in stuff. And you're just going through this process to create a good sounding soundscape of the instruments, vocals, and sometimes you'll be automating, or oftentimes automating those things. You may have like vocals that'll come up and drop. You'll have instruments swell and drop, like, so you're like having the faders move on their own. So you're automating it, so you're writing those faders. And once you get a solid sounding mix where it's like, okay, this sounds clear, sounds good, I can hear what's going on. Now we're going into mastering. I most of the time kind of do both at the same time, and that's
Yeah.
kind of just because I've been doing it so long. Because I kind of know where things need to be. I can kind of like, so like I'll get a mix to a certain point, then I'll to like maybe 60%, and this is what's was a term called top-down mixing. So then I'll throw my mastering software and whatever mastering plugin. Like usually, like, I'll start with a compressor and a limiter and like some basic EQ on the master output, your 2-channel, your 2-track. Previously, you would basically export or record out or track out your mix into a stereo 2-channel track, and then that would go off to a mastering engineer, and they would use very high-end gear. Oh, dropped you.
I'm so sorry. Somebody was calling me.
Oh, you're good. Then you would go into mastering hardware which is super high-end. Like you're talking like EQs that are like $5,000 to $15,000 per channel. Compressors that are the same price. Like mastering level gear is another level of stuff. Like you can basically, it's mixing just your stereo track. So you're manipulating the EQ subtly, the compression. You may add reverb or other characteristics through hardware or software combination. I do both. I have both hardware and software. So like I will be routing stuff like in the DAW. It'll come out my board and then go into rack gear, come back into the board, pass back into the DAW, and then that'll go like, so it may go in and out, like different things may go in and out of the console, in and out to get to that point. So mastering is really just taking that 2-track, getting that final polish, getting that volume level to compete with the rest of music out there, and making sure you're not squashing it. It's a delicate balance between, you still want dynamic range in your music, you still want there to be ups and downs, but you want it to be loud, you want it to feel even and not like huge drop-offs in level, and like it's an art really to master, and you're trying to mix and master really.
Yeah.
But it's really kind of, and nowadays, like I said, it can be almost the same thing sort of, but it is different. Like it's like taking that.
I feel like mixing is like a rough draft, and then mastering is your final draft. Like,
yeah, that's a real simplified way to look at it. Yes. Yeah. Like
some people might think it's weird, but
whatever. What's the word? Not acronym. Metaphor? Yeah, metaphor.
Yeah, metaphor.
Whatever works to make it make sense in your head, because we all need usually some sort of metaphor to make sense of something, whatever that
is. And then who was the biggest artist you have produced and engineered for?
I mean, I did some stuff with some strange artists, different times and stuff. I did, what was his name? He's still on Strange too. I'm terrible with names today. I'm like just one thing. But I mean, nobody like super famous, like, but I've been around, and worked with some like you'd consider medium famous kind of people, like, but nobody crazy. Unfortunately, but I've collaborated like with Chris Calico and Stevie Stone and stuff like that. But like I wouldn't consider myself engineering their stuff. They already sent me stuff. I'll like usually get the stems and like mix them for sure. But usually most of the work they've already they have the sound that they kind of want. So for me, it's just kind of taking what they have and making sure it fits within the context of the entire song. So I'm not usually making drastic changes to their stuff. So
absolutely. And then my last question is, do you have any shout outs or any messages to tell your fans?
I mean, if you I guess want to follow me, I'm on pretty much all those socials you can just Google Duce Ray. I pop up everywhere, but on Instagram, I have a beat store, duceraybeats.com. I'm on BeatStars and SoundClick and all the major streaming services for my own music, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube Music, SoundCloud, everything really. So I'm pretty easy to find, to be honest. Like if you can't find me, I probably can't type. I don't know.
And then I do have to ask this. I got to put this extra bonus question in there. What do you like doing better, being an artist or a producer / engineer?
Depends on my mood. Like I think honestly, like really, like if you just look at my whole life, like whether it's music or creative or sports, everything. Like I get bored. I can't just do one thing. Like the one
Yeah.
thing doesn't just. I mean, they all excite me in different ways, and I need variety. And because I learned the hard way, like just doing music, nothing but music. Like where there was a period of time where that's all I cared about. Like everything was just music, music, music,
Yeah.
touring, recording. Like I was literally for years like sleeping like 2 hours a night and getting
Oof.
burnt out. So
Yeah.
so like I had to step back. Like there was like after that for about 2 years, I couldn't even turn on the radio. Like I couldn't even stand listening to music. I listened to anything else but music for about 2 years because I just got so burnt out from it.
Yeah.
But getting into video, that led me back. Phone call again, probably.
Somebody keeps calling me. I'm so sorry.
So then I got into video, and that like I started working on some like lower budget films. People would send me films to edit, and then they're like, "Hey, can you do the audio to it?" And then that eventually got me back into audio, and then I just found a more balanced perspective on things after that. But because I even like sold most of my gear like during that time, I was like, I don't want to touch music ever again. Screw this. Like I sold like so much stuff, so I had to rebuild it up. But yeah,
Awesome.
I enjoy it all, honestly.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, those were all the questions I had for you. And I want to tell you from Lizzy's platform, thank you so much for getting on here.
Of course.
We did an hour and 27-minute interview. So that
Damn.
is awesome. I know this is my longest interview ever, but I wanted to definitely give you that opportunity for being a producer and engineer and artist on top of that
I appreciate
for
it.
the Pacific Northwest and letting people know who you are even in a broader spectrum.
Yeah, I
So
appreciate that.
thank you so
Oh,
much for joining me
thank you.
today, dedicating your time for me to get on
Hey,
here. And I'll definitely send you this interview after
sweet.
we end it.
And you're killing it out here too. Like I've been
Thank
watching
you.
all your interviews, and so keep it up. Like I know how sometimes like things can be like, oh, this is
Yes.
too much and everything else. I mean, sometimes you just need to
Yes.
step away for a few minutes, so to
Yeah.
speak. But
Yeah.
just recharge that battery. Don't give up because
I'm going to be honest. This next week, my husband won coast to coast, and we're flying to Miami for the
heck
world championship. And I literally, like, too much has been going on in my life. Too
yeah,
much. And so we're going to Miami for a week, and that's going to be my week that I turn my phone off and I focus on me because a lot has been happening.
yeah.
And so I'm like, you know what? I think my fan base and all my musicians and engineers that I've interviewed will totally understand
Oh yeah.
why I'm taking
You
this break.
you deserve a break, 100%.
Yes,
So take it.
absolutely. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I will definitely send you this interview in a few minutes. All right.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you so much again. Have a
All
good
right.
day.
You too.
Bye.